Good evening. I'd like to call the June 19th, 2019 board meeting to order and remind everyone to please use your microphones when speaking and turn them off when finished. Thank you. Commissioners present are Commissioner Doan, Commissioner Duggan, Commissioner Schmidt, myself, Commissioner Bagnall, and we have Commissioner Sanders off with an excused absence for tonight. We will start with reports by the Chief Executive Officer and management staff.
Tonight I will do it from here.
And acting in place for our CEO is Paul Matthews, our CFO.
Good evening, President Bagnall, Commissioners. So tonight, yes, I will be giving the department report from here. I will also be giving the CEO report, and we'll start with our safety moment. Tonight I want to just take a moment to talk about cybersecurity and cyber safety, and just give you a sense of we're all targets, and we really need to take care to prevent any sort of harm that can come to us. We show here a variety of devices and avenues that people take to gain our information about our identity. The first one you see there, a thermostat. Many of us have these at home. They're connected to the internet, and you might remember that when I think it was Target or Home Depot got hacked, they actually came through the HVAC system and compromised their security. Protect yourself, create complex passwords. Don't share the passwords with multiple sites. So if you have one password for Facebook and another one for your thermostat, that's good practice. If you use the same password for both, that's a bad practice. Whenever possible, use two-factor authentication, which is essentially require, if you're logging in from a machine that's unknown to it, to have it either send you a text message, make a phone call to you, and you can then verify that you are who you say you are. When it comes to devices, secure your devices. Set strong passcodes. These are common sense things. Download apps only from trusted sources, and that's not the internet. That would be probably from an app store. Never leave your devices unattended, especially if you don't have a strong passcode on it, and keep your devices up to date with the latest patches. Security vulnerabilities are coming up all the time, and it's best practice, again, to keep your devices up to date. When it comes to social media, be cautious. Put a limited amount of information out there, your personal information. That can be used really either to compromise your identity or phishing attacks where they use information that you've put out there publicly to trick you into providing additional information to them by spoofing a service provider that you might normally use. Manage your account privacy settings. Go into those things, look at them, and be sure you want to share the kinds of information that you share, and double check what you post online. It only takes a few seconds for somebody to steal your identity, and it can be very dangerous for you financially as well as everything else. So again, just as a safety moment, take care of your cybersecurity needs. With that, I will transition into providing an update from our CEO, who is actually off today. I'm sitting in for Mark. He's out celebrating the wedding of a family member, so I'm happy to be here this evening. First, I want to talk about cryptosporidium. Last month, Mr. Knutson provided an extended report on cryptosporidium oocyst that the Portland Water Bureau detected in several samples collected at Bull Run Headworks. Since that report, the Bureau has not detected any additional cryptosporidium oocysts in the sample. To date, there have been no increases in expected cases of cryptosporidius. Did I say that right? Cryptosporidium. Help me out here, somebody who can speak English. The disease that can result from an infection by cryptosporidium associated with the detections in the Bull Run system. Complete results are available on the Water Bureau's websites, so take a look there if you're interested. I want to talk a little bit about water supply. Even though the calendar indicates that it is late spring, the summer supply season is in full spring. The Portland Water Bureau reported that the Bull Run system entered drawdown on May 7th. Drawdown is the date at which the flows into the Bull Run system are insufficient to meet the flows out that are used to supply water to the city, its wholesale customers, and for its habitat conservation plan. Essentially, drawdown is the date at which the region begins to rely on the stored water in the Bull Run system. Similarly, both the Barney Reservoir, which holds about 5,647 acre-feet of water for the district, and Hag Lake, which we've leased 580 acre-feet of water for the district, entered drawdown at the end of May. As the last report from the Joint Water Commission on June 9th, TVWD's total stored water at the JWC is about 6,000 acre-feet. which is a little bit less than 2 billion gallons. This may prove to be a challenging year for water supplies in the region, but the region appears to be well prepared. Portland can augment its water supplies with the Columbia South Shore well field, and the district took the proactive step that I mentioned of leasing water in the Hag Lake to meet our summer needs. Although water supplies are adequate to meet customers' needs, as usual, we urge all customers to use water wisely. We'll provide updates as the summer use period continues. I want to provide a quick update on WIFIA. As we've discussed in the past, the United States Environmental Protection Agency has invited the district to receive a low-cost loan under the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act of 2014 for the Willamette Water Supply System. Since being invited to apply for the loan, staff have been busy completing the necessary tasks for closing the loan. The board took action in March to have the first reading of the district's bond ordinance, the step required for closing the WIFI loan. The ordinance was approved by the board in April at its regular meeting and became effective May 17th. The ordinance, along with the master revenue bond declaration, which the board approved on May 15th, allows the district to close the loan. Currently, the district plans to close the loan in late July. The closing date is about 6 months earlier than previously thought possible, so we're happy about that. The WIFI loan is important to the district for several reasons. First, interest rate is quite low. If the district were to close the WIFI loan today, the interest rate would be 2.57%, a little bit more than it was yesterday. This is much lower, though, than the district could borrow in the municipal bond market. Also, the terms of the WIFI loan are very helpful to the district given the long-term nature of the water supply program. The interest rate is fixed at closing. Therefore, the district avoids the risk that interest rates will rise over time. Having the interest rate locked not only reduces risk, but allows the district to be more flexible in its other borrowing activities. Interest charges only accrue once the district actually takes a disbursement of the WIFI loan money. As a result, there is virtually no cost to the district in having the WIFI loan in place until we actually draw on it. The WIFI loan also allows the district to structure the repayment to start after substantial completion of the water supply project, July 1 of 2026. That means the district can repay the loan after July 1, 2026 over a 35-year period. Rather than paying debt service while the water supply project is being completed, the district can use that money to fund capital improvements with cash. This helps the district's cash flow immensely, saving our ratepayers money. So as indicated in our letter of interest to the WIFIA program, all these factors taken together are estimated to save the district ratepayers about $231 million between 2020 and 2045, and we'll continue to update the board on the progress on the WIFIA loan. With that, Finance has the department report, and since I am sitting in for Mark, I will introduce myself as the CFO and the manager of the finance department and proceed with the finance department report. This is kind of a tough good news, bad news story. It's a tough one here. The finance department has had a whole slew of retirements recently. In the past year, I have listed here some of the key staff that have either retired or given us notice. Bob Shields, our finance and accounting supervisor, has been with us for over 25 years. He's retiring in July. Todd Burton, our budget officer, who we'll hear from later tonight, is critical to our operations here. He'll be retiring in August. Rena Byrne, she left us in June, 2 weeks ago, as well as Dan Barstow was our fixed asset accountant. Debbie Klein, one of our accountants, and Renee Ogletree. All these people have left the district within the past year. So there's a lot of new faces within the finance department and a lot of things that we need to cover. At the same time, things are changing at the district that the finance department needs to evolve to address. As we're currently organized, we really have two groups. The accounting group, which maintains and monitors all the internal controls, does all the things listed there that you would expect from the accounting group to do. And then we have the finance group that manages the rates, the financial planning, manages the investment portfolio, conducts business cases, debt program, does the budget, procurement, on many of the treasury activities. As we go forward, this structure needs to evolve, and we have a slightly different approach that we're taking, breaking it into three parts. So we'll have a finance reporting and controls group, which will be led by our new controller, David Schick, And they will do the monitoring and maintaining internal controls. They'll manage the treasury activities. They'll maintain the general ledger. That'll be the primary responsibility. And they'll prepare the financial statements and financial reports for the district. But their job largely will be around those avenues, especially financial statements and maintaining the controls. The accounting operations group, they will do a lot of the day-to-day accounting operations, billing for miscellaneous services and maintaining our accounts receivable. They'll maintain our vendor files and make sure that we have all the information we need from vendors to pay them and to report those payments accurately. They'll manage the procurement contracts, pay invoices, and manage the accounts payable, and they'll manage the payroll process as well. But we still have those tasks on the finance side that need to be done. Manage rates and financial planning. The investment portfolio, which right now is the single largest asset the district has, is our investment portfolio. All that work will need to be done. The challenges we face, first of all, with these kinds of retirements, knowledge transfer. Accounting cycles are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and biannually. There are certain things that we just don't do every day. The budget, for example, we do that every other year. And so when we bring on new staff, we have a challenge of running them through all those cycles because we don't keep them for that period of time. We've been very fortunate in that we've replaced many of our key retirees before they actually retired. So we've been able to bring staff on and have some cross-training time to do that knowledge transfer. Like any business, we have some undocumented workflows. We try to minimize those, but they exist, and typically you don't find them until you run into the workflow and you don't have it documented. And we have a lot of employee-specific knowledge that's going to be walking out the door. There are some leadership challenges as well. A loss of working relationships can cause people to become disoriented in how they're going to navigate finance. We need to work on that through effective change management. And the last item I have listed here are the challenges that are happening as TVWD evolves in its new roles. So TVWD needs to be prepared to do more complicated accounting as part of its managing agency role for the joint ventures. Substantial debt program, including the issues we just talked about with WIFIA, all the federal compliance associated with that, whether we're talking about with EPA or other federal requirements from having the debt program. Increasing complexity of the generally accepted accounting principles that just seem to increase over time, as well as a new CIS that we're going to be actively involved with. All those things will be a challenge. But we're keeping our eye on the ball. We're going to be watching for employee morale, making sure that we maintain that because that'll be an indicator that things are a challenge. We want to make sure that we go forward productively there. We'll be looking closely at the 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. We'll have a whole new team producing that report, and we haven't gone through that cycle yet with all these retirements, so we'll be focused on that. Todd has been great at documenting the budget process that's culminating here tonight, but we will have to do that again in 2021, 2023, and we may not have his skills. We'll be watching our GFOA awards. We like getting those awards not only because they indicate we're doing a good job, but we learn a lot from the process and the comments that we get back. And of course, we want to maintain our credit ratings. So here are some of the new faces that we have at the district that have started. Listed here, new controller, which I think you've met in the past, David Schick. He's the gentleman on the far left with the blue shirt, as well as all of his team that have, not just his team, but new folks that are joining the finance department. So with that, any questions that you might have on the department report or the CEO report?
I'd like to make an observation on the CEO report. As Paul indicated, the Bull Run started taking water out of storage on May 7th. 25 years ago, when I was chief engineer, we didn't even drop the gates to increase storage until May 12th. So we're about 30 days earlier than we were 25 years ago taking water out of storage. That's significant. It means that things are smaller than they need to be to supply water. The salvation here comes from the fact that there's a groundwater system. But I can always remember the water supply engineer and I sitting down on May 12th and deciding if it was time to drop the gates yet or not. And here the water's come out of storage on May 7th. It's amazing. I guess we just can't rely on our institutional knowledge anymore.
That's true. The other thing I found interesting, because this is not my area of expertise, but in talking with the people of the Water Bureau over the past month, they actually learned after the fact that they had entered drawdown on May 7th. Because the way the Habitat Conservation Plan works, they actually figured out after the date has passed that, oh, that was the date that we actually started with drawdown. I assumed that you knew drawdown occurred when you saw the water go down. It doesn't work that way. They were expecting some Rose Festival rains. It didn't happen in the way that they had expected.
It's true. The Rose Festival is usually a pretty good sign of rainy weather. Well, thank you for that, Paul. Very well done. And now we'll move to Commissioner Communications, the reports of meetings attended. Commissioner Doan, let's start with you.
Push the wrong button. Okay, I have tonight's regular meeting. I spent June 9th through the 14th in Denver, attending a WWA convention and technology transfer. And I guess the one big takeaway I have is that if you plot lead concentration, you can simultaneously plot loss of children's IQ. There's a direct correlation. And I knew there was a correlation, I just didn't realize it was sort of one-on-one and it's linear. So, as we look to lead in the future, we can know exactly what we're doing or not doing. I had the work session on June 7th, and I got one of the rewards of being a commissioner is I got to judge the calendar entries for our calendar for 2020. And I should probably confess that I'm colorblind. And so if it's really bright, I can see it. So those of you who want to do it for 21, bright colors attract my attention. But other than that, the AWWA thing was just mind-boggling that it's so linear on lead. That's it.
Thank you. Moving to Commissioner Duggan.
On April 30th, we had our budget committee meeting. May 30th, we had our budget committee meeting. On June 4th, it was our board work session where we talked about community engagement. On June 5th, I attended the Regional Water Providers Consortium board meeting where we elected a new chair, which is Mark Fagan from the City of Beaverton, and a vice chair, which is David Judah from the City of Hillsborough. We received updates on program activities and considered a request by the City of Newburgh to join the Regional Water Providers Consortium so that they could participate in all the benefits that come out of being a member for water conservation program information, for emergency preparedness and regional coordination. Even though they aren't contiguous to the rest of the water providers, they will be given a special membership category that's being created so that even though they aren't contiguous to the rest of the water providers in the region, they do share the same media market and can receive a lot of the other benefits from being a member of the consortium. So the consortium board voted to allow staff to work with Newburgh to honor their request to join. There was an update on the Bloom Doom tabletop exercise, which was emergency preparation with the scenario of a toxic algae bloom or blue-green cyanotoxin event in the water system, and Tualatin Valley Water District participated, the staff did. And then that evening we also received a legislative update on the various bills that were in process that may affect water providers. On June 6th, I met with Mark Knudsen and Dave Kraska to talk about the Willamette Water Supply System meeting that will be held. The first meeting will be held in July. On June 9th through the 13th, I also attended the American Water Works Association annual conference in Denver. Learned a lot of scary facts about fire retardant chemicals and other man-made chemicals that are now prevalent in our environment, all the way from affecting polar bears to being in a certain concentration, depending upon where you live, in people's bloodstream. And it's going to be a challenge for water treatment systems in the future. And then tonight's board meeting.
Thank you. Moving to Commissioner Schmidt.
Thank you. I have 4 that I attended. On the 30th of May, I attended the last budget meeting. On the 4th, I attended a work session, and topics have already been mentioned. And on the 18th, yesterday, I met with Tom and Paul to discuss today's agenda and then today's board meeting.
Now, I have a little longer list than I often do. On the 23rd of May, I attended the Westside Economic Alliance Mayors Forum, and there were 11 or 12 mayors there, all from the West Side, and it was really interesting to hear what the issues were that they're confronting, and especially interesting to me that none of them thought water was an issue, which I attribute to the fact that us special districts are taking care of that for them, so they don't have to worry. On May 30th, I met with Mark Knudsen and Tom Hickman, our incoming CEO, to talk about the transition plan. Also on May 30th, I met with the Budget Committee for the proposed budget review. On the 4th of June, I had the work session, and folks have already covered that. And similarly, June 6th through the 13th, I went to the AWWA conference in Denver. One of the real interesting sessions I attended with Commissioner Duggan was the Public Officials Caucus, where we learned that Erin Brockovich is really not America's sweetheart. She is making a living going from town hall to town hall and rabble-rousing, if you will. So it was real interesting to hear how this city dealt with that issue when it came up for them. On the 12th of June, I had a telephone conference call with the Joint Water Commission Executive Committee because we needed to deal with a supplemental budget issue. And then on June 18th, I met with Paul Matthews and Tim Boylan to do agenda planning and tonight's board meeting for regular district business. So, having finished that, are there any topics to be raised by the commissioners? If not, we'll move to the first item on tonight's agenda, which is a public hearing, and where we will consider adopting the proposed budget. And I want to recognize at this time and thank the members of our Citizen Budget Committee members, Craig Hopkins, John Velaradsky, Marilyn McWilliams, Mike Whiteley, and Carl Fisher. And Marilyn McWilliams is here in the audience tonight, so a special thank you for making time to come for this. And for your volunteer work. They attend 2 long work sessions and read a lot of complicated material. So we really appreciate those volunteer efforts. The public hearing tonight is to consider adopting Resolution 18-19, which is a resolution adopting the budget and making appropriations for the Tualatin Valley Water District for the 2019-21 biennium. And this is the process that we'll go through. First, we'll hear the staff report. Then I'll open the public hearing in accordance with ORS Chapter 294. Anyone who wishes to offer testimony in support or opposition to the budget will be given 5 minutes unless an extension is granted by the board. Should 3 or more people testify on the same topic, each person will be limited to 3 minutes. Then following the public testimony, I will close the hearing and the board will consider action on the item. We are going to have the staff report tonight presented by our budget officer, Todd Burton. And I want to take a moment, too, to recognize that this is Todd's last budget, and he's done a wonderful job for us for many years putting this big process together and scrupulously following local budget law, which has got a lot of twists and turns, and there are a lot of places you can trip. So, Todd, we thank you for your work. We thank you for your service. And take it away for the staff report.
Great. Thank you, President Bagnall and members of the Board of Commissioners. Good evening. Tonight's staff report will include remarks by CFO Paul Matthews, acting both as CFO and CEO. That will be followed by a brief update by Dave Kraska, our Water Supply Program Director. If you might recall at the May 30th meeting, when we asked for feedback of what we should present at this evening's meeting, there was a comment or a request made that we talk a little bit about the outreach activities that the Willamette Water Supply Program staff are engaged in to communicate about the Willamette Water Supply Project, not only for our customers, but those who are impacted by the construction or will be impacted by the construction. So Dave has some remarks on that. And then I will conclude the staff presentation with a brief overview of the budget that's contained in Resolution 1819. The management team is here tonight to answer any questions that you might have or any questions of the public. Sorry, I forgot to skip to the agenda slide there. My first trip. So we reviewed the budget and financial planning process at our May 30th meeting, and we are now at the final step of that, which is for the board to consider adoption of the budget. The items that are outlined in blue are board items. They included 2 work sessions, although we're only showing one because both of them had the same content. But the items in blue are the board items, and the items in yellow are budget committee items, which include the board and the 5 citizen members. A little bit different this year. We used a different process because we spent a lot of time on the financial planning process with the board and involving the budget committee. And Paul will talk a little bit about that during his remarks. But the financial planning process really guided the development of the now approved budget. And it gave us direction from the Board of Commissioners to develop the budget request, particularly related to our capital improvement program, particularly the in-district capital improvement. So that was something we've added this budget process that we didn't really engage our budget committee in last cycle. I think it was a very successful process for everybody involved. As far as the budget committee itself, we had a district tour. We had an update by our customer services manager, Andrew Karlstrom, on the customer information system project. We held 2 workshops. The first workshop covered the district's financial plan, as well as the capital improvement requested budgets for both the in-district capital improvements, which was presented by our chief engineer, Kerry Pack, as well as the Willamette Water Supply capital improvements that was presented by Dave Kraska. We had a second workshop on April 24th that really focused more on the operating budget of the district. Each of the district managers presented their operating budget requests and talked about several of the district initiatives that the board had directed that we develop budget priorities around the district approved initiatives. Again, Paul will talk about that in his remarks. Finally, we had the May 30th Budget Committee meeting that you referred to in your recent meetings attended. And I would like to note that the Budget Committee had a unanimous 10-0 vote to approve the budget and recommend adoption, which is why we're here tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Paul Matthews, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Todd. Please. So just a couple quick comments that normally you would hear from Mark Knutson, but with me standing in for him tonight, I'll be delivering those. And that's the direction that the CEO gave us as department managers in preparing the budget that went through the process Todd just described. 5 things he listed here. First of all, the goal was to maintain the current service level. If we were to opt to or ask to change the service level, we would have an add package that would justify the change in service level. We continue to be data-driven in our decision-making, gathering information for example, through those add packages. We are also going to limit organizational structural changes. We had gone through a massive reorganization of the engineering operations side, and we were not going to undertake that as part of this budget cycle. And he also asked us to document the savings that the district had encountered throughout the biennium. Listed here are some of the savings that we've identified that we've tracked throughout time. And this is just an example, but every day our staff are out there trying to do their jobs with as few resources as possible to be as efficient and effective as they can be. But these are the ones that we can distill and pull up and identify directly. The last one on the list, of course, is one of my favorite ones, which I talked about just a little bit ago, which is the big savings that we've been able to find for our ratepayers through our WIFIA financing for the water supply program. So what's new in the 2019-20 budget? Really 4 areas. First of all, the water supply program. The water supply, TVWD, is taking on a new role as the managing agency, and that's changing some of the work that we need to do and how we do that work. And we continue to plan for the future of the Willamette water supply system and the operations of that. The district initiatives, on the other hand, support these activities. For example, the debt program, which we've talked about just recently, our resiliency and reliability program, and a human capital strategy. All those things are part of our district initiatives that we created through the strategic planning process we go through. Todd mentioned the new customer information system project that Andrew is managing, so that's a big part of what we're doing in this budget cycle, is to make sure that the district delivers that in partnership with Clean Water Services and does it in an effective way. And then all the while, we need to run the business. So we have business operations that are future focus as well. Our capital asset investments to make sure the in-district CIP is rolling out in the way that we talked when Chief Engineer Pack and I brought that to you in January and February and March. Still going forward with that. Cybersecurity and resilient internet services to make sure that we have the ability to keep the business running in the event that we lose some of our internet. And we did talk about the PERS strategy at length during the budget process and how the district is going to fund a side account to reduce our PERS cost over time and to get a better return for our ratepayers. Before we turn back to Todd, I want to give you a quick update on the district's financial performance as well as a quick update on the financial plan that we have. And we've talked about this graphic many times and where we stand on this. Right now I want to talk about the oversight and accountability, which is that outer ring. And by presenting here in public our financial performance, we hope that is part of our accountability. When we look at financial performance, we look at 3 key areas. In the future, we may add a 4th one when we have a bigger debt program. We may look at that. But right now, we look at expenditures, revenue, and our cash position. That's how we know whether or not we're operating in a good position. Our operating expenditures, this graph presents the operating expenditures. The dashed line, the dotted line that you see here, is our budget expenditures, and the solid line is our actual expenditures. And you can see as we get to the last month in the biennium, we're well under budget. And so we are managing those operating expenditures effectively. Water sales revenue, again, the dashed line is the budget, the solid line is the actual, and on revenue, we're above trend line, and that's very helpful as well because that provides resources to the district. Our cash position, in our financial plan, we had anticipated the cash position coming down as our investments in capital, especially the water supply program, the in-district CIP, would bring those down. But with the additional revenue that we've had and some delays in capital projects, our cash position remains quite strong. So our key takeaways on our financial performance: operating expenditures are below budget, capital expenditures are below budget, water sales revenues exceeded projections, our system development charges exceeded plan, our projected ending fund balances are higher than expected, we are currently debt-free, so we are starting the biennium again in a rather strong financial position. With that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the results from the financial plan, and this is the information that we presented to you last month that you had approved. The key issues for the financial plan: in-district CIP alternatives, the Willamette water supply system, operating expenditures, and the per site account. Those are the 4 important elements of the financial plan that we had, key issues in the financial plan we had to look at. So we talked about working with the chief engineer and coming up with the CIP alternatives, bringing the board into that process to make the board identify the risk levels and the expenditure levels and the impact that would have on the financial plan. The three alternatives that we presented, one was a high-risk strategy, which essentially left many of the risks in place and we would just tolerate those risks. The medium risk strategy, which is that we would monitor the risks, manage them over time, and then we presented a low risk strategy, which would be more expensive, where we'd actually try to eliminate some of those risks. And the board gave us clear direction to work on alternative to the medium risk direction. So our financial plan and the budget have both been created around that goal. Out of the financial plan, you see here the expenditure plan that we have. You can see the bulk of it is capital investment. The light blue area is the capital investment, and that's throughout the 10-year CIP period. You can see especially pronounced with the Willamette Water Supply Program being built out during these early years. You can also see our water supply and demands. We are going to transition from the Portland Water Bureau off into the Willamette Water Supply System at 2027 at the completion of the water supply program. All those are budgeted as well as integrated in the financial plan. Our capital funding plan includes issuing bonds. We are looking at the WIFIA loan to fund some of this capital outlay, which is the light blue area, and traditional revenue bonds in 2023, 2024. Again, by using the WIFIA money, we're able to reduce our total borrowing by not paying debt service until the project is complete. So how does the WIFIA benefit the district? I talked about this during the CO report, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. Just the point is we're able to save our customers about $231 million between 2020 and 2045. The customer impacts that this financial plan and the budget are based on are producing rate increases with the assumptions we have in the financial plan now that are about 3.9% per year. That's where we are right now. And the typical bills are the solid bars that you're seeing there. So what's changed in terms of the financial plan? These rate increases are substantially lower than we talked about before. A few things have changed. First, regional partnerships. Beaverton has joined the Willamette Water Supply System. That has had revised cost shares, meaning that the district share isn't quite as much as it was before. WIFIA, a major contributor to that. Strong water sales. Customer demand has been strong, and the revenue coming in has been able to keep our fund balances healthy. Continued growth in service area as well. And then the Beaverton Service Area Agreement allows us to identify better when customers and the withdrawals and the effect that will have on the district's finances. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Dave Kraska to answer the question that was raised during the Budget Committee.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Good evening. So the question we received at the Budget Committee meeting, simply put, was what are you doing to get the word out, not only to the ratepayers but to the stakeholders about the program? And this bubble chart shows you, well, it's quite a bit. Thousands of conversations at farmers markets, 127,000 website visits, tens of thousands of mailings, and so on. So there's really been a lot of work put into our public information campaign and public involvement to get the word out, to let people know we're coming and kind of what we're about, why we're doing what we're doing. But we acknowledge there's always room for improvement. And so to that end, we did this public opinion research last year, a refresh really, to make sure that we're aligned correctly with our audience. We're 4 years into the program, and really the goal here, as stated, is to better understand the attitudes, perceptions of the ratepayers and key stakeholders. Update our messaging and materials accordingly, ensure that we're focusing on the key issues, and make sure we're not confusing our constituents or using the wrong words. It's funny what words mean to us versus our constituents. We want to make sure we're communicating appropriately. So there's really three groups of the work that we did. We looked at stakeholder interviews, telephone surveys, and focus groups. The most fruitful were the stakeholder interviews and focus groups, so I'll have a couple of slides on those. Just a quick point, the telephone survey, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but to get one person to answer the phone takes about 300 calls. And so that's a lot of work for a little return, and therefore it probably not going to do a lot more of that. So the stakeholder interview highlights what we learned from our stakeholders, and here we're talking about agencies like Washington County, cities, TVFNR, THPRD, things of that, folks of that nature. The communications are going well, and the best methods, or the methods they like receiving information from us the most, is our monthly Willamette email, the newsletter, and direct updates from staff on our website. The construction impacts, obviously, we're seen as their biggest concern, biggest communication challenge for us. And there's a belief that also the ratepayers know much less about the program. So guidance from them that we need to reach out more directly to our ratepayers about what we're doing on the program. Regarding a focus group highlights, where we get a small group of people together and interview them directly, we found out that even with the hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands and all these things that we're doing, few customers are aware of the Willamette Water Supply Program. So clearly room for improvement there. And that the Willamette concerns, there are concerns about the cost and the impact on water quality, even though those are improving. Meeting future needs is considered the most important reason for the investment. And they're receptive to the benefits of seismic resiliency, and something that we champion quite a bit. But it's interesting to find out that to them, anyways, it's not top of mind. It's not the most important thing. So the takeaways from this work are that we've done a good job reaching the stakeholders, but we probably need to do more specifically for our ratepayers. There are worries about water quality of the Willamette River, even though, frankly, in reality, the quality is improving. Increasing rates are a worry for some, but actually many say that the water is still affordable. And with that, I'll pass the presentation back to Todd.
So I do have one question. It is my memory that it was Budget Committee member John Veleradsky that raised this question, and so are you sending this presentation to him so he has his answer?
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Great. Any more questions of Paul or Dave before we move on? Great. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Paul. So, sort of the legal part of our presentation is to review the budget, the approved budget 2019 by fund. This is what's contained in Resolution 18-19 before you this evening. It is important to note that there are no changes from the budget that was approved by the Budget Committee on May 30th. This graph shows the district's 9 funds and the level of appropriations that are contained in each fund. Oregon local budget law, one thing we don't want to trip over, requires that all appropriations be made at a fund level. So I'll be presenting very briefly each of the district's fund on a fund-by-fund basis. For the 2019-21 biennium, we will be presenting 9 funds. This includes 2 new funds that we'll be asking the board to establish as part of the approval of the resolution. The Willamette Water Supply System Fund, which really activates the joint venture between the cities of Beaverton, Hillsborough, and us to build most of the Willamette water supply system. And a debt proceeds fund, which will house the WIFIA resources as well as any future debt proceeds from future borrowings by the district. We do have one other fund for debt service. It's what we would consider an idle fund. It's a debt service fund. We are not, the proposed budget does not, or the approved budget does not include any appropriation for 2019-21. However, as we work through the financial planning process over the next 2 years, it's possible that the board may be asked to consider doing some additional borrowings through a traditional bond market during this biennium. So we would come to the board with a supplemental budget resolution if that's the case. Going through the district's funds, the general fund is the district's operating fund. It includes all personnel services. We reviewed during the Budget Committee process. There were some new positions requested, 2 for the water supply program, 1 a water supply manager to really oversee the joint ventures that Paul had mentioned in his remarks. That would be a position in the water supply program. And then in the second year, it's funded for just 1 year, a water supply operations manager. And that person will begin to work with the group that's already in place to talk about the future operations of the supply system, the treatment and conveyance and transmission systems. Personnel services for the biennium are up about 8.7% for the 2 years, or about 4.3% per year. I forgot to mention this, in addition to the 2 positions in the water supply program, the budget also includes 4 limited term positions. This is in the customer service department. These are customer service representative type positions. They are being hired to backfill positions of our permanent staff while they work on the implementation of the customer information system. So the intent of those folks will be to keep the lights on in the district while the permanent staff work on the new computer system. The personal services budget at 8.7% over the 2 years also reflects the district's participation in setting up a side account for PERS, so that dropped our personal services budget almost $1 million for the biennium period. The general fund materials and services are up about 7.6% annually. This includes a $2 million increase in purchased water through the City of Portland and the Joint Water Commission, which is the largest district operating expense. And it includes some of the funding for some of the ad packages that we reviewed with the board and the budget committee at the last meeting. I always like to point out that we have partners, and not only in the water supply program, but also in utility billing and meter reading. And these costs help offset a significant portion of our operating expenses. We anticipate about $8.4 million, or almost 10% of the district's operating budget, will be reimbursed by our district partners, which include Clean Water Services, the City of Beaverton, and the City of Hillsborough, as well as some of the other water supply partners. The special payments category, which has the very significant increase, includes 2 line items. One is the right-of-way fees that are collected by the cities of Beaverton, Tigard, and Hillsborough for those customers that we bill and provide service to, but reside in the corporate boundaries of those cities. And the larger piece is the PERS side account, which the Budget Committee reviewed and approved as part of the budget for the next biennium. Excuse me. There is also a general operating contingency in the approved budget of $15 million. This is funding that the board can access through a board action to make any adjustments to the operating budget during the biennium. Also, we transfer money from the general fund to other funds, principally for capital improvement plans, capital improvement projects. That's the last line item, almost $78 million for transfer to other funds. We'll have an unappropriated fund balance projected at about $12 million, for the biennium in the general fund, and that can be used for future appropriation. The district's capital improvement fund houses all of the district's capital outlays for not only our in-district projects, but also for our participation in the 3 joint venture projects. The in-district projects include all of the infrastructure through Carrie Pack's engineering department, as well as includes funding for the CIS, or the Customer Information System project. It includes fleet and facility improvements, meters and sales when we install new services, which are collected through a separate fee, and other kinds of capital outlay. It also importantly includes the district's share of appropriations for the Willamette water supply system, the Willamette intake facilities, as well as the district's participation in the Joint Water Commission. It's budgeted at about $180 million for the biennium, driven primarily by the Willamette supply. One other appropriation item in the in-district capital outlay is the Metzger Pipeline East. That is a project related to the Willamette Supply project, but it's all TVWD, and that connects the water system to the Metzger service area in the eastern part of the district. Capital Reserve Fund is where we hold all this money until we need it for capital improvements. It has an identical appropriation of $179 million to support the capital improvements that we saw in the prior fund. Resources include system development charge revenue, meter and service install fees, interest earnings, transfers in from other funds, principally the general fund, as well as any borrowings that we would do during the biennium, which we anticipate will be proceeds from the WIFIA loan. The projected ending fund balance in the Capital Reserve Fund is almost $28 million, again, can be held for future appropriation. The Debt Proceeds Fund, which Paul alluded to and is one of the new funds that is established in the resolution, is to hold resources from our borrowings. The approved budget for that is $25 million for the WIFIA loan proceeds. And again, it can be used for holding other borrowings as the district continues to access financing for the Willamette Water Supply, its participation in the Willamette Water Supply program. The Customer Emergency Assistance Fund, this is a fund that was established in the 2015-17 biennium to provide financial support to customers in need. It is resources come from our customers as well as TVWD commissioners, staff donations. We also receive donations from our partner agencies, Clean Water Services and the City of Beaverton. We have a third party that determines eligibility for customer emergency assistance. During the current biennium, 2017 to date, we've provided assistance to about 247 customers at an average level of funding of about $115 per request. The approved budget is a little bit lower than what was in the adopted budget at $33,000, but really was based on actual usage trends. We're trailing behind what we appropriated in the prior year just based on usage. We had a better idea of how to set that budget. The district covers the overhead for administering this program. The Willamette Water Supply System Fund is the fund that Paul, again, one of the primary agency funds to manage the design and construction of the Willamette treatment, storage, and pipeline facilities. It replaces a fund that we had in the district called the Water Supply Fund. So we're segregating all of these resources, not only the district share, but our partner share in a new fund. It is a joint venture with the cities of Hillsborough and the city of Beaverton. The district serves as a managing agency. The Willamette Water Supply System is governed by the WWSS Commission, which is comprised of members from all three partners. This fund includes appropriations from all partners, including the district share of $108.4 million and about $111 million from the partners. The district share for administration of this fund is budgeted in the Administrative Services Department, which houses the CEO through our regional partnerships line item. District dues for the upcoming biennium are about $917,000. It is important that we are reimbursed by our partners for our labor and overhead costs, and we anticipate about $1.1 million of that money I mentioned earlier. About $1.1 million will be coming back to the district from our partners to help cover our costs of administration of the Willamette supply system. The second partnership fund or joint venture fund, this one is the Willamette Intake Facilities Fund, which was actually established in the 2017-19 supplemental budget in conjunction with the IGA that was approved by the board. It is specifically established to operate, maintain, and construct improvements at the existing Willamette treatment plant intake facilities. It has more partners as a result of that. In addition to Hillsborough and Beaverton, the City of Tigard, the City of Wilsonville, and the City of Sherwood are partners. Again, the district serves as managing agency. Again, it is governed by a separate commission of the WIF Commission, also comprised of the district's partners. It includes appropriations for all the partners, including the district share, primarily for capital improvements at the intake facilities of $3.7 million and a partner share of $4.2 million. Similar to the other fund, that the Willamette Supply System Fund, our dues are budgeted in the Administrative Services Department. The district dues for the upcoming biennium are $131,000. And we expect to receive about $250,000 from our partners to cover our labor and overhead to administer this joint venture. Finally, we have the Willamette River Water Coalition Fund. It is intended to maintain water rights on the Willamette River. It is a joint venture between the district, the cities of Tigard, Tualatin, and Sherwood. The district serves as the managing agency. It is governed by the WRWC board, comprised of the members of each partner. Appropriations are relatively small compared to our other joint ventures. The district share about $76,200. The partners share about $90,000, almost $91,000. And again, these costs are budgeted in regional partnerships in the Administrative Services Department. So this is the bottom line of the appropriation summary that's contained in Resolution 19-21, a total appropriation of about $812 million for each district fund. To break it down to a little more manageable size, this chart shows really what's dedicated for operating the district and its joint ventures. The operating expenses about almost $88 million. Capital expenditures, which include the district share as well as the partner's share for primarily the Willamette water supply, about $405 million. I mentioned the special payments to support the right-of-way fees and the PERS participation, and contingency for both the general fund as well as a couple of small contingencies for these joint venture funds. So this operating expenditures are about $492 million, $493 million with a total budget appropriation of $812 million. I always like to point out, although transfers between funds are not an expenditure, they are an appropriation category, so they're a substantial part of this number. In closing, as Paul had alluded to, we are starting the biennium in a very strong financial position. The 2019-21 presents new challenges and new priorities for the district. The approved budget provides fundings for the initiatives based on the board's direction and its strategic plan. It executes the district's capital improvement plan, including the customer information system and the district's share of the Willamette water supply. It supports the district's role as a managing agency for the Willamette water supply, and it was unanimously approved by the Budget Committee at its May 30th meeting. Staff is recommending approval of Resolution 1819, adopting the approved 2019-21 biennium budget. On behalf of the on behalf of the staff at TVWD, I again want to thank the citizen members of the Budget Committee and Marilyn McWilliams, who is here tonight, for their commitment, time, and expertise, to the district customers that we serve, and to President Bagnell and the Board of Commissioners for your leadership and direction. I do thank you, Bernice, for your comments at the beginning of the public hearing or the staff presentation. All I can say is that I had an opportunity to learn from the best, and it's been a pleasure being part of this organization and working with the staff here. So with that, I'd like to return the meeting to you. We're happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions from the board? In that case, I am now opening the public hearing on item 1A. I have 2 pieces of in-person testimony, 2 persons signed up, and 1 piece of email testimony. So calling first, Mr. Harry Bodine, you wish to testify?
I am Harry Bodine. I live at 2130 Southwest Burbank Place in Cedar Hills. I've been a Tualatin Valley Water District resident since October of 1964. I'm here tonight in full support of the proposed budget and the water rate increases that will be required to support it. That's because our water district is midway through a $1.2 billion construction project, water transmission construction project, that will serve those living within the district for the next half century and beyond. When completed, 7 years from now, it will add a 3rd major water source to the Portland metropolitan area, and we who live within the district will own it. The project is an asset those living in TWD will benefit from and enjoy for decades going forward. In short, TVWD residents and businesses who will be paying gradually increasing water rates in the coming few years are getting real value for the money they are spending for water. A month ago or so, your board voted to issue
$200 million in revenue bonds to step up the pace of construction on this project. The bonds will mature over an extended period of time, meaning that those living inside the district in the future who will benefit from this water source will help pay for its construction and maintenance. And unlike Portland's Bull Run water, we have TVWD have been using since I moved here 55 years ago. We will own this new water source. We will no longer be subject to the changing moods of the Portland City Council. In short, the Willamette transmission line the proposed budget supports is a huge deal for those like me who live within the district. That's why I strongly support the proposed budget that you have before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bodine. We always value your input and your support.
You're very kind.
The next person testifying is Marilyn McWilliams, who is one of our brave volunteers who serves through hours of budget committee work.
Hello, I'm Marilyn McWilliams, and I live at 11700 Southwest Butner Road in Portland, Oregon, 97225. This is a time to be proud that you live in Washington County. We have an alliance of the 6 cities joining with Tualatin Valley Water District in building the foundation of a new water supply. This will help us to grow businesses, promote public health, and unite us in a common purpose. Our congressional delegation is helping us to manage the cost of this investment to keep rates reasonable. I thank our customers and our neighboring cities for their confidence in our future. I am proud of this 2019-2020 budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words of support and your vision. We appreciate it. Lastly, I have a piece of email testimony received from another Budget Committee member, Mr. Craig Hopkins, and he has to say that he's sorry he can't be here tonight, but needless to say, quoting him, this budget continues to be ambitious with a focus on CIP and various service component upgrades within the system. Kudos to the board, administrative leadership, and staff for pressing on in the pursuit of excellence where the function and ongoing development of this utility is concerned. I count it as an honor and a privilege to be part of the process and ensure its continued success as a major water provider to the region. Signed, Craig Hopkins, Budget Committee member. And we very much appreciate his words as well. Is there any other testimony in support or in opposition? In that case, the public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 18-19, a resolution adopting the budget and making appropriations for the Tualatin Valley Water District for the 2019-21 biennium?
I propose the acceptance of Resolution 18-19.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. We now move to the public comment section of the meeting. Public comment time is set aside for persons wishing to address the board on items on the consent agenda and matters, not on the regular agenda. Additional public comment will be invited on agenda items as they're presented. Do we have any people that would like to comment? I think so. Moving to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action, and any items requested to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items which do not require separate discussion. We have 5 items on the consent agenda tonight. Item A is to approve the May 15th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. Item B, approve the May 30th, 2019 Budget Committee meeting minutes. Item C, approve the June 4th, 2019 work session minutes. Item D, authorize the board president to sign the certification of election results for the May 21st, 2019 regular district election. And item E, adopt Resolution 1919, which is a resolution endorsing the annexation to the Tualatin Valley Water District of a single property located at Tax Lot 100, T1NR2W, Section 14, Willamette Meridian, at 21627 Northwest Union Road in Washington County. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Moving to the business agenda. Time will be set aside for public comment. Oh, I don't think we need that. All the public left. Okay. So item 3A is consider adopting Resolution 20-19, a resolution reaffirming the declaration of public necessity in Resolution 20-18 to acquire permanent easements and temporary construction easements for pipeline section PLM-5.2 for the Willamette water supply system and continuation of condemnation proceedings. Staff report from Clark Balfour, Legal Counsel.
Thank you, President Bagnall and Commissioners. So, yes, this is Resolution 20-19 regarding acquisition of real property interest for pipeline section PLM 5.2. And what you see on the screen and also in your packet is a map that details the easements to be acquired along that stretch of road. As you can see, this segment continues from Roy Rogers Road westerly along Shoals Ferry Road, then to Tile Flat Road, and then to Grabhorn Road. It's 9,900 linear feet of 66-inch pipe, which I think if I have my numbers correct from the program, there's about 160,000 feet of pipe in total. So this is one piece of the 30-mile pipeline, essentially, from Wilsonville into our service territory. As you can see from the depiction on the screen and in your packet, this is along the interface of the urban growth boundary. The program is doing this as a Willamette water supply program project, not as part of a county road project, which, for example, on Roy Rogers Road, which is segment 5.1, that is a joint county WWSP project. And another part of the complicating factors here is this area to the north and west of Tile Flat, Shoals Ferry, and Grabhorn is the South Cooper Mountain urban growth boundary area, which is currently under development by some fairly large development entities. So, back in last year, I don't quite have the date here. Thank you. As long as I have Mr. Kraska here with me, my facts will always be straight. In July of last year, we adopted Resolution 20-18, which authorized commencement of the condemnation process for these properties along this route. It identified the properties, it made findings of public need, and it directed staff to go out, conduct appraisals, and make offers. It also directed staff to report back prior to the filing of any condemnation actions. That's where we are tonight. This is Resolution 20-19. And it reflects the condemnation actions that we've taken to date, reflects that we have made 40-day offers to the property owners. It reaffirms the declaration of public necessity that you made in Resolution 20-18, and now directs the filing of complaints. So, as part of this, we reaffirm our declaration of public necessity. We find that this routing is the best path for this 66-inch transmission line. It reaffirms that this project provides the public benefit of a new resilient water supply system for TVWD, Hillsborough, and Beaverton, and it reaffirms that the project is located in a manner that causes the least private injury. How does that happen? Well, it minimizes or avoids impact of farmland and stays on the urban growth boundary side of those roadways. And remember, one of our overarching principles in Oregon land use law is to preserve farmland. And so to the extent that we can avoid impacts from these waterline improvement projects or any other public improvement project for that matter, by placing it on the urban side of the fence is going to be preferred. That's what we're doing here. We are within or adjacent to county road right-of-way. And finally, portions of our work here will stretch over a year or so, but we are trying to develop certain parts of this pipeline in conjunction with the developers so that we minimize overall impact to the public by their work and our work at the same time. So with that, we would request that you approve Resolution 20-19, and I'm free to answer any questions.
No questions from the board? Okay, do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 20-19, a resolution reaffirming the declaration of public necessity in Resolution 2018 to acquire permanent easements and temporary construction easements for pipeline section PLM-5.2 for the Willamette Water Supply System and continuation of condemnation proceedings?
I request adopting Resolution 2019.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 With no opposed, the motion passes. Lastly on our agenda, no, not last. I'm missing one. There was one more that was added late in the day, and that would be to consider adopting Resolution 21-19, a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between Washington County, Tualatin Valley Water District, and the City of Hillsborough for the Willamette Water Supply Program, water system facilities right-of-way permits. And the staff report will be from Dave Kraska.
Thank you, President Bagnall. Good evening, Commissioners. So I've been in front of you a number of times for various agreements. No PowerPoint tonight, so this is a very brief agenda item. But I've been in front of you many times in the past with many agreements with Washington County on projects that we've been completing with them in partnership. So where they're building a road or doing road improvements, we're installing our pipeline at the same time. So what we need is an agreement with Washington County for those projects where we are constructing in their roadways, but they do not have any roadway construction improvements. In the staff report, some of those projects are listed, such as we have improvements, or some of our pipeline is going in Roy Rogers Road, Grabhorn Road, Clark Hill, Farmington, Cornelius Pass, Shoals Ferry. These are all projects that will be constructed in our pipeline work, but Washington County does not have any improvement projects. So given the scope and scale of the work that we're doing the certainty that we need in terms of how we work with the county on these projects, and frankly the impact that it has on county staff time with regard to their need to review our work and approve our work on a timely basis, and then also come to agreement in terms of the costs of this work and requirements during construction inspection, we needed this agreement in order to move forward. Many of the terms of this agreement are right in line with established practices that we've been employing on other county projects. The other benefit of this agreement, it allows the district to act as its own surety. We don't have to bond these projects for the county, and that was a negotiation with the county, and we're very thankful for them for allowing us that to happen. So with that. Be glad to take any questions, but recommend approval of Resolution 21-19.
Are there questions from the board? Then, in that case, do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 21-19, a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between Washington County, Tualatin Valley Water District, and the City of Hillsborough for the Willamette Water Supply Program Water System Facilities right-of-way permits.
I move to adopt Resolution 2119.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Sorry, Dave, I was this close to forgetting that. Lastly on the agenda, we have an informational presentation on the rate-setting process and schedule looking forward. And that will be Paul Matthews and Andrea Watson.
Actually, tonight it'll just be Andrea Watson.
Good evening, President Bagnell and commissioners. Just coming to you tonight with an informational item that the Finance Department and I put together, and just walking through what kind of rate-setting process we're proposing. As the budget process is completed, we can now go into rate setting. And so the first step of that will be to determine the structure and proposed water rates and charges. And then we would have a public engagement period, which involves mailing the postcard as required and conducting a hearing, as well as providing an opportunity for those who can't attend the hearing or don't wish to attend the hearing to provide some written testimony to the board. And then that would conclude with an approval of the water rates and charges. And then we would be beginning our information process to let our customers know that those rates have been approved and that they will be going into effect November 1st, if that's what you choose to do, which has been the traditional timeline. So we are proposing a timeline here that would begin in August with a work session to get some feedback from the board about the various rate proposals and options. And then we are recommending open houses, as you've done in the past, but reducing that from 3 to 2, with one of those being on a weeknight and one of those being on the weekend. And then we would have the hearing at your regular business meeting in August. And then we would leave the comment period open for a little while longer. And then we would have the rates adopted in September and take effect in November. And assuming you want to go with the same process of setting them for 2 years, then we would have effective dates, once in 2019 and once in 2020. On the communications tactics, we are required to do a mailing this time. We have opted to do the mailing in the interim years as well. We want to utilize some of our electronic means, which includes our bill inserts for our paperless customers, and then the paper form of that for the customers that get billed in that format, as well as we would like to do social media, and we would like to make an informational card that we would have at our outreach events and our open houses. We're also proposing a key customer breakfast. One of the ad packages for the budget is to enhance that program and have more opportunities. We have met with them and kept them informed, but we feel like we have a good news opportunity to talk about the WIFIA finance and financing and how that may have changed our projections from the past years. We have done a review of what we've done in the past. We have used social media in the past, and we shut down the comment period, not allowing people to, basically say anything to our promotion items. We are recommending that we change that and that we monitor that and give responses similar maybe to what we did when we did the branding. It's just social media doesn't work as well when you don't allow them to be social. And since, some of our platforms like Nextdoor, which is our most engaging one with our customers, we can see what they do on our post. But if they take that and create their own, and we don't have anybody who tells us what's happening in that neighborhood, then we aren't aware of what they're doing anyway. So for me, this is sort of like, do you take it in prevention, or, do you take it after you have the disease? So, my view is they may not come to a meeting. That doesn't mean they're not talking about it or disagreeing with us or having an opinion. So I'd rather we just keep it open and we continue to provide facts and address that, or maybe we just let it go depending on what it is, like we did with the branding, and just kind of let them have the discussion. We want to create a graphic. I mentioned that, just something that kind of shows a visual of where we think we're going to be and what this means in terms of the typical bill, pulling on information that you've already seen out of the financial plan and other documents. And then we also want to discuss it at our outreach. So that's kind of a high-level overview of what we are suggesting, but we, want to have a discussion and any guidance that you might have or tweaks that you might want to our thinking, so we know what tools to start creating.
I'm wondering if we shouldn't have the work session in July instead of August. I think we're running into deadline issues with getting the postcards out and everything.
Okay.
So
well,
I'd like to be open to that. So nothing's really set in stone, but we'd like your guidance on that.
Okay, so when CEO Knudsen returns, I think that would be something we could take up with him and work through that decision.
Yeah, that would be very useful, because we don't want you in such a compressed process that it jeopardizes full participation.
Very good.
Other questions or comments?
What I want to say is thank you very much. This is well thought out. I think we've tweaked this as time goes on, or you've tweaked it as time goes on, so that the program's just getting better and better, which is cool.
Well, one thing I think we do know is that when customers do engage and they come to the open house, they leave happy. For the most part, they leave with a lot more information and just an ease that they understand what their money is purchasing. And so I think that venue is the best. It's difficult to relay some of these items in writing or on a postcard, but I think just going ahead and getting out there with it. And I think we have a really great news story with the WIFIA financing and some of the other things that have kind of enhanced our ability to keep rates at the level that we should be able to do that. So I think it'll be a positive experience. And it'll help us with the research, too, that Dave presented about really coming out and telling the story of the main reason is this new supply. We need our ratepayers to understand what kind of investment that we're making.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it is much appreciated. Well, unless there are other comments or questions from the board, I will declare the meeting adjourned. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.